Hi, I'm Robert Osborne. I'm joined once again by my co-host for our Festival of Latino Images in Film. He's author, professor, and director of the UCLA Chicano Studies Research Center, Chon Noriega. Welcome back.
Thank you, Robert.
Good to have you here. Now, our next film is about the world of boxing, and like our last film, it features the suave and handsome Mexican actor Ricardo Montalban, co-starring this time with June Allyson and Dick Powell, all of them in the very good hands of director John Sturges. It's a film from 1950, 1 year after our last film, and it's titled Right Cross. Why this film?
Well, this is an interesting film. One is a boxing film, but two is one of the few films that's addressing very directly the issue of racism. But it does it in a very unusual way. It identifies it as a problem that the main character, played by Ricardo Montalban, has. It's kind of a chip on his shoulder that he has about the gringo conspiracy. He's convinced that whites are really only interested in him to exploit him while he's a successful boxer, but don't really care about him as a person. And what's interesting is the film kind of presents this almost sociologically at the beginning, but it's quickly revealed that this is more of a personal feeling. It's something that has to do with his own inner psychology, and the point of the film is to disabuse him of these beliefs by the end of that. And one of the ways that it does this is through the kind of interracial, interethnic relationship with June Allyson, who's the archetypal girl next door. So if the two of them can get together, clearly America is a place in which a young Mexican-American boxer can integrate and assimilate into American society. And that becomes the crux of the film, much more so than the boxing elements, actually.
Interesting. Also interesting that we have to keep in mind that right around this time, 1949, was when Hollywood for the first time was really tackling the issue of African Americans as well in society, with movies like Pinky and Lost Boundaries and others like that, all kind of coming at the same time. So it was a time that Hollywood was getting very aware of these social issues, not just with Mexican Americans, but just with African Americans and all other ethnic groups.
Yeah, from you got the late 40s, early 50s, this period, you really see Hollywood interested very broadly in what are identified as social problems. Now that itself is itself a problem of sorts, that you're looking at issues that are defined as problems rather than trying to understand things that have previously really not been integrated or understood as a part of American culture.
There's so many aspects going on in this movie besides the ones you've mentioned. Also, the fact that in real life, June Allyson and Dick Powell were married at this point, and in the movie, it's not June Allyson and Dick Powell that are kind of romantically involved, but June Allyson and Ricardo Montalban.
It's actually potentially a love triangle, and the question is, who's going to win out?
Who's going to win out? We'll see. Here, have a look. A movie released by MGM in 1950, directed by John Sturges, and also featuring very briefly but very noticeably a young Marilyn Monroe. Here's Right Cross. Well, June Allyson was at this point one of MGM's biggest female stars and married at the time to Dick Powell, who played Rick Garvey, with whom she didn't end up at the finale. And I'm back to talk about this film and the way it presents Latinos with my co-host, Chon Noriega, who's a professor at UCLA and an author. Interesting movie. Also, our next movie is about a boxer, a Mexican-American boxer. That genre used Mexican Americans a lot, didn't it?
Yeah, it almost rivals the gang or gangster genre. And you know, a lot of this you can trace back to Joe Louis winning the heavyweight championship in 1937, which really opens up the possibility of black and Latino boxers occupying a place in American popular culture in the mainstream. And so it makes a lot of sense that, you know, the films would kind of pick up on this, because here you have a very graphic and visceral way of dealing with racial conflict, racial integration, by putting that alongside the rather bloody path that a boxer takes to get a title fight or a championship. And so you see this in other films like The Ring with Lalo Rios and Rita Moreno, Right Cross, which we saw, and then Requiem for Heavyweight.
Which you're going to see.
Yeah. And then after 2000, what you see are a group of Chicano directors that go back to this genre, and they see it as a way of actually trying to retell that story through films like Price of Glory, starring Jimmy Smits, and also the very first TV series produced and directed by Latino filmmakers, Resurrection Boulevard. And what these do that's a little different is they shift the focus solely from the boxing ring to the intergenerational families that are involved with boxing.
Do you have a favorite in that genre?
I think my favorite's Requiem for a Heavyweight.
Yeah, which we have coming up.
Yeah.
Nice segue. So here, stay with us. Chon and I are going to be back to have a chat about another boxing film as we look at Latino images in movies. This next one indeed stars Anthony Quinn giving a really dynamic performance as a boxer nearing the very end of his long career. Hi, I'm Robert Osborne. I'm here with Chon Noriega, my co-host for this evening, and an expert on how Latinos have been portrayed by Hollywood. Chon also helped program the lineup of movies that we're showing every Tuesday and Thursday in May. Welcome back, Chon.
Thank you, Robert.
Good to have you here. Now, up next, we have Requiem for a Heavyweight from 1962. Wonderful movie starring Anthony Quinn, Jackie Gleason, Julie Harris is in it, and Mickey Rooney. Quite a cast. Quite a cast, and it's so interesting because our last movie about a boxer was very much about the fact he was a Mexican-American. That was very crucial to the plot. In this one, that's kind of downplayed. That's kind of just a secondary element, isn't it?
Well, it's that he has a sixth grade education.
Right.
That he's been a boxer for almost 2 decades, was once ranked 5th in the world, and is nearing the end of his career. And the family becomes less a biological family or an ethnic family than his cornerman and his manager, and the dysfunction that exists within them as a kind of family group. The film's interesting because it downplays the ethnicity on the one hand, but it's visible throughout the entire film because it reflects accurately the increasing presence of Mexican-American and other Latino boxers in boxing. And so you'll see in the arenas, you'll see a number of the posters throughout, or in the locker room, actual posters for Mexican or Latin surnamed boxers that were then fighting. So it's kind of an interesting nod to what was actually happening in boxing as a sport.
Now, this was based on a teleplay written by Rod Serling.
Yeah.
They've been done with great success on, I think, Playhouse 90, that series on TV. I haven't seen it. I'd love to see it now and compare it to this, because that was originally done by Jack Palance, who was not Mexican-American. Yeah. And I wonder if that element was added because Anthony Quinn was playing the part in the movie, or if it was there because I know they wanted Anthony Quinn to do the teleplay and he couldn't do it. So it'd be interesting to know if that was kind of added because he was in it.
Well, it certainly reflects Anthony Quinn's participation in the film, but also the fact that the film is really not foregrounding ethnicity per se, but in many respects class and educational status. Quinn's interesting because he's notable for having played just a wide range of racial and ethnic types throughout his career, including Arab characters in The Road to Morocco, but also Lawrence of Arabia.
Right.
But he's also played Mexican characters, most notably the Oxbow incident, where he's just an amazing presence in the film, but also Viva Zapata, where he becomes the first Mexican-American actor to win an Oscar.
Well, let's see the movie. Here it is, based on a teleplay, which was written by Rod Serling. The movie from 1962. The very same year, Anthony Quinn played a desert chieftain in Lawrence of Arabia. Here he is giving another really wonderful performance in Requiem for a Heavyweight.